What do you do with a kid with ADHD? In part 1 of my video, which if you haven't watched, I really encourage you to hold up to the end of the video, and I will link that video on this video so that you can watch part 1, because part 1 actually talked about the first 2 pillars of health that you were never told. And the first 2 pillars are talking about relationships and how that can be healthy or broken, which would be fear or love based. Obviously, if it's broken, that would be a fear-based type of relationship, whether it's with yourself, with others, or with God. And then that would derive or bring up mindsets that could be toxic, that will eventually create a lot of stress within you, because broken relationships are the biggest cause of stress in someone's health, okay, period. That has been established in science, and 87 to 95% of chronic diseases have been linked back to unhealthy thought life. So imagine the power of the mind, and that's something that a lot of doctors won't say, which is why I want you to hear it from my mouth, that toxic mindsets can cause disease. So if you haven't watched that, go back to the part 1 video, which I'll explain in more detail. Now, when we look at ADHD, if you have watched my arrhythmias video, part 2, you would have realized that I've actually listed down the same 5 steps. Okay, because ADHD, which is a mental health condition, a learning disability, stuff like that, it is not really on a protocol. That means there's not really a system where ADHD fits in. So it's not like an autoimmune disease where it's an immune system problems, or it's not. It may not be like a say a rheumatoid arthritis, where it is also an autoimmune condition, which then again links back to immune system, or a non-bacterial inflammation, which is looking back at your nutrition, immune system again. So it is not really a system in the body where we can fit ADHD in. Okay, but ADHD, when patients come into my clinic here, what we have found is that inflammation is a huge issue, okay? And therefore, immune system also is a problem. Therefore, energy production is also a problem. So a lot of people with ADHD do have energy issues. They can be really low in energy one time, and then they can get really hyperactive in one time. So they can be focused on something, and all of a sudden that interruption in that brain flow happens, and all of a sudden they snap out of that particular activity that they're working on, and they move on to the next thing. So these kinds of energy production problems and immune system problems go back to what I was talking about with the heart, because when we talk about fixing someone's ADHD, getting someone to heal 100%, in my previous video I talked about intentionally working with parents, okay, or caretakers, to create an environment of 3 things, okay, less stress, play, and fun. Last one, of joy. Okay, these 3, I know they're very abstract concepts. I got into that in part 1 of the video, so again, watch that video if you haven't. But once those things have been created, okay, that will take time, because creation of the atmospheres are not an overnight thing, right? If it took so long for the disorder or disease to develop, it will take some time, not an overnight thing, for the parents to recalibrate and recreate the atmospheres that are healthy for a kid with ADHD to thrive and ultimately be completely healed. Okay, so but then when we look at talking about specific things that we can do right now, like if I'm sitting here with an ADHD patient and his or her parent, I want to be able to tell them, hey, you can do something right away, because healthcare is always about what I can do now, not really something that I can do or can only take effect 2 or 3 years from now. Like, you want to be able to give the patient certainty that they can do something now, and it can add or contribute towards the healing of their child. So this is what I focus on. Okay, when someone has the heart issue, and like I talked about the different joy, love, and fun and stuff like that. So these are all the things that we talk about, that we get the patient to create an environment, right, of joy, love, and fun that is obviously less stressful. Then how do we get them to increase their heart issue, even without doing anything that is joyful, even without doing anything that's loving, even without doing anything that's fun or stress-free, right? So that's where we actually educate the patient and the parent about chronic pain. So we now have to first ask the patient and the parent, has he or she had chronic pain? Maybe low back pain, wrist pain, finger pain, maybe they had a concussion from a low crush vehicle accident 5 years ago, right? And maybe the kid is 4 years old, they were sitting in the backseat of the car and they got in the car accident. So these chronic pain from a whiplash can very adversely affect the inflammation, which then again goes back to the next step. So once we fix the chronic pain, then we gotta ask ourselves, how is this kid's inflammation like? So we can do clinical diagnostic testing here, figuring out, is this kid tending towards pro-inflammation or is this kid tending towards anti-inflammation? So we're looking at prostaglandins, bradykinin, histamines, interleukins, and all these different chemicals that would dictate someone's inflammation, okay? Now, immune system, right? Does this person have chronic infection? Does this person have any kind of sensitivity, right? So I'm talking about food, I'm talking about chemicals, I'm talking about heavy metals. All these things can make someone's immune system a lot more hyperactive. Or does this person, right, have a sluggish immune system? Okay, so we can have an immune system that is so hyperactive, and on the other end of the spectrum, we can have an immune system which is so sluggish, and therefore we need to give the patient certain therapies and certain food as medicine to help the person boost their immune system a little bit, okay? Then lastly, before we reach the heart, is really fixing energy production, okay? So energy production really is asking ourselves, is the person, right? There's an energy cycle within your body, which is known as the citric acid cycle, the production of ATP. That is your currency for energy. That is where I would be telling the patient or asking the parent, does he or she have low energy? Because ADHD kids often have really high levels of energy and then they have really low levels of energy. So where does the patient sit on that spectrum? And therefore we need to fix that. And often we use food as medicine as well. Okay, so this is really a quick snapshot of how we actually treat a patient with ADHD. And if you're sitting there and you go, I've got a friend who has ADHD, or who has a kid who has ADHD, or my own child has ADHD, or you may be one of the rare ones above the age of 18, and you also have ADHD, when you have the diagnosis of ADHD, something can be done. There is faith, there is hope, there's love available for you right now that you can do in order, because this kind of protocol is only being carried out by holistic doctors. And at the end of the day, because the dominance of our healthcare system, which is pharmaceuticals driven and surgery driven, there is not much that is available for you when you have ADHD. So this is where I want to come to you with this new perspective, this fresh perspective, to offer you hope and love so that you can heal from ADHD. Okay, so please like, comment, subscribe to this video, hit the notification button. Please share this video, because the certainty that I trust that you have gotten from my teaching here today can be someone else's testimony, or can even be yours. So please comment, like, subscribe, and I would love to add value to you again. So see you on the next video, where I discuss the next disease on the alphabet letter A. All right, look.